I had an accident. Oh, well, if you ever wonder what a fat Arthur clown looks like, I mean, whew, it's always the mask, man. His costume's actually pretty comfortable. The mask itself is just terrible, but yeah, if you're watching this, happy Halloween. And this is a video that I'm actually kind of surprised I've never done before, and that is going over my favorite horror films of all time. I love horror movies, whether that be, you know, the high budget ones that end up doing really well, or some of the more goofy ones, you should say, the B movie, just absolute perfection, where they're so bad it's good, which, as far as I'm concerned, you're not really gonna see any of that on here, but I do like myself a cheesy horror film as well. So, without further ado, I didn't want to, you know, put these in any particular order, so I'm just going to kind of go through them as quickly as I can. And I'm not putting horror comedies on here because I see them more as comedies than horror. I'm going with ones that strictly have any sort of like horror or, you know, thriller kind of aspect to them. So, without further ado, let's start it off with one that at this point is over 10 years old. I just realized that my hat fell over. I'm gonna put that back on, but yeah, Sinister is the first one on the list. This came out in 2012, so I would have been a freshman in high school, and this is the last movie that I credit for actually scaring the shit out of me, because I watch horror films all the time now. Nothing really disturbs me or, you know, freaks me out. I mean, in case you couldn't tell by who I'm dressed as, but this movie just, all in all, weirded me out and freaked me out in some places, like when Ethan Hawke is just watching these clips of these people die. Like, you don't particularly see anything, like the guy getting run over by the lawnmower, but you can tell by, you know, Ethan Hawke's reaction that it's something pretty sinister that he's watching, pun intended. And this movie was so good that I just refused to watch the sequel. I know that a second one came out, but I wasn't excited about it because I'm like, the first one's so perfect that if they try to do this again, it's just going to ruin the whole experience for me. So to this day, I have never seen the sequel because Sinister to me was that good and it creeped me out so much, I didn't want it ruining the vibe. Next, we have a classic from 1980, that being The Shining, starring none other than Jack Nicholson, and this one goes more under the thriller category, but yeah, it's based off of a Stephen King story, so you know that it is a pretty freaky and unusual story where, you know, this family who, you know, the husband is a writer, to kind of get his mojo back, they spend the night at this hotel that is seemingly haunted, and of course, these demons or ghosts sort of slowly possess him and take him over to a point where he tries to kill his wife and his kids, and we find out too that his kid has psychic abilities and can, you know, see things that others can't. It's just a very interesting movie. Again, one that doesn't freak me out, but I like the visuals that come with it. I mean, there's that scene where the elevator just comes down and there's just blood flying out of it. Like, that is an interesting visual, and the fact that they were able to perfect something like that, it's just something that movie itself thrives off of, and I think that's what makes it really good.
Here's Johnny!
Then we have a classic, Dawn of the Dead. This came out in the 60s, right around the time they were starting to put ratings on movies like G, PG, and R, so you can get away with a little bit more than what you were used to back then, where you couldn't show too much blood, you couldn't really curse all that much outside of maybe saying hell and damn a few times. This was like the first horror movie that used violent visual effects. I say violent to make it look violent and gruesome and grotesque, and Tom Savini, one of the, you know, biggest, you know, when it comes to, you know, horror movie makeup and special effects, he perfected this. I mean, just when you see the zombies bite into the people's skin, it's like their skin is actually tearing off rather than looking like something unrealistic. Like, it just takes the realism to the next level. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of zombie movies, but with this and say something like 28 Days Later, those ones are my favorite just because of the way the effects work and the overall creepiness tone. This is actually a silent film from 1922, I believe. That being
Nosferatu!
Nosferatu has been memed to hell and back, but when you look at it and actually watch the movie, it is a very interesting one, because obviously this was the first time, or one of the first times, that we actually saw a kind of rendition of Count Dracula on any movie screen, and because they couldn't use the copyrighted Count Dracula, they renamed him to Count Orlok, still basing the story off of the actual Dracula novel. But because this is a silent film, it relies a lot more on the look of the character and just the overall atmosphere of it. I mean, Max Schreck plays Count Orlok. Yes, Max Schreck is a real person. He's not just a made-up character in Tim Burton's Batman Returns, played by Christopher Walken. He perfected the look of what just creepiness was back then, because with silent films, especially horror films, to really freak someone out, they couldn't rely on loud jump scares or this, that, and the other. They had to rely on, facial expressions and this, that, and the other, and just the lifeless face of Shrek, and being able to do all this stuff that just didn't look human-like was so interesting for its time, and there's a reason it's seen as one of the best silent films of all time, because of what it was for the time and what it will become to be historically 103 years later. Next we have Seven, which is a movie about the 7 deadly sins. It features Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, and Kevin Spacey.
You like boys?
Little problematic in that sense, but he plays the, John Doe killer. So, of course, a creep is playing a creep, and he's perfect at doing it, because that's just who he is in real life. Basically, what this movie is about, as this could be seen as more of a thriller than a horror, but with the way it turns itself out, I think it could be a horror thriller more than anything, is there's this killer on the loose, and he's killing people kind of using the 7 deadly sins. Each of them is one of the 7 deadly sins that ends up getting killed in a certain way, and this is also infamous for having this line in the movie.
What's in the box?
But again, the tone is interesting, and the more detective-leaning aspect to it just kind of gives it a different feel from a lot of other horror films that we've seen at the time, and to me, it's one of the more underrated, I think, because outside of that meme from the scene at the end, nobody really knows much about this movie, but it's one that I would recommend you go watch in its entirety, just to see how good it actually was. Alright, I'm taking this off. This is too much. I will leave the hat on because, it's funny. But yeah, we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre next. This movie came out in 1974, and for a movie about a guy running around with a chainsaw killing people, actually not a ton of blood in the movie. I mean, there is a scene where the girl gets put on the meat hook and you kind of see her bleed a little bit and all this stuff, but it's more about the creepiness factor of the cannibal family and the kind of, I guess you can kind of say, body horror, because literally this is a killer going around, mask made out of real human skin from its victims that they have killed over the years, while the rest of the family just kind of has this very weird vibe to them as well. It's a movie that just does its thing, and really, the original's where it's at. The second one's okay, and then once we start getting past that, even all these remakes, they just haven't been able to capture what the first movie had, because I feel like they're either trying to be a little too gory, or they're taking the story a route that just, it didn't need to go the way it did. It was like, it was perfect the way it was. We needed to leave it alone, but of course, since it was so big, it got a sequel, and then more sequels, and then more reboots, and it kind of just ruined it for me. But the original, still OG. Hey, look at that. I mean, who would have thought that this movie would have been on the list? I mean, there was no sign of that whatsoever. Okay, all in all, joking aside, I was late to the Terrifier party. The first movie came out in 2016. I had never seen All Hallows Eve, which came out 3 years before that, I believe. I saw this movie around 2022, 2023-ish, because I had heard that the second movie was coming out, and I'm like, okay, what's the big deal with this? And my mom and I actually sat down and watched this, and I gotta say, it was interesting, because What I like about the first movie is there's no lore necessarily about Art the Clown. You just kind of get, oh, he's like this killer demon clown that goes around and, you know, he just kills people for fun. It doesn't matter if you're man, woman, black, white, whatever. If you get in his path or he just, you know, is bored and wants to do something, he will kill you, and he will kill you pretty brutally. Now, it does end up leading into a story as we get to the second, third movie and the upcoming fourth movie, which is supposed to be the conclusion to this Art the Clown lore. But what I like, too, is Terrifier kind of brought us a horror slasher villain that is already iconic just about over 10 years into his existence, whereas he started as kind of like this vanity project. He has turned into, like, you're seeing costumes of him everywhere, you're seeing people dress up as him, and he's basically become the go-to horror movie clown, surpassing Pennywise at this point, although Pennywise does have a show that's coming out. I actually think the time this video will be out, the Welcome to Derry show will be on HBO Max, so they're going to be rivaling each other for a little while. But Art the Clown right now, I think his popularity is kind of up here because he's like Pennywise, but he doesn't necessarily just target children, and he doesn't follow the rules when it comes to your modern day slasher, where he'll use anything to kill you, whether that be a hacksaw, a chainsaw, a hammer, a gun, a baseball bat with nails sticking out of it. He will do anything to kill you just because he wants to and just because he can. Next is another interesting one. I don't know why I'm still holding this, but next is another interesting one, that being Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 film Psycho. It's another one where you don't necessarily see a lot of kills happen. There's really only 2 kills that go down. When you see Janet Leigh die in the beginning of the movie, or not even the beginning, but like partway through the movie, like the whole first part is about her character and how she's trying to get away and all this stuff, and then she goes to the Bates Hotel and Norman Bates kills her. And in the second half, one of the cops comes, and when he tries to confront Norman Bates, what looks like Norman Bates' mom comes out and kills the cop. But we later find out that Norman Bates' mom has been dead for years, and because of the abuse he suffered at the hand of his mother, he became insane, started dressing like her, talking like her, having conversations with himself as his mother. He was just basically what the title of the movie was. He was a psycho, and he just would lure people in, mainly women, get them to be comfortable in this hotel before actually, you know, slicing them up. I mean, obviously there's the iconic shower scene. The movie as a whole is interesting because, sort of like the movie Seven, it takes more of like a detective kind of route to it, where most of the movie is, I think it was supposed to be Janet Leigh's sister and this guy are looking for her, and they're doing a lot of this detective work to kind of, you know, find out where she is before they find out she's actually dead, and they find out the big twist in the movie. The second to last movie we're going to be talking about is The Orphan. This came out, 2009 or 10, and I know it took them a while to make that sequel. The sequel was good too, but what I liked about The Orphan was that whole movie, you're just thinking like, wow, look at this little girl is just going around just fucking people up, just killing them. And then you find out this whole time that it was a grown woman.
Oh my god, you're a woman?
Who obviously, you know, was very, very short, a little person. And then you're just going, wait, so they did this for what reason? For some sort of thrill or just jealousy or something like that? And it was just so interesting to me because I don't really think they ever tried to make a movie like this before. Like, we've seen movies about killer children and stuff like that. Just look at like The Omen as one of the big ones, but it never had a twist like this, where the whole movie you're thinking there's a little kid and it turns out to be this grown woman who's been doing this the whole time, and you're just like, huh, it was right under my skin. You know, that explains why she always wore like the neck choker thing to hide the cuts that she was, you know, cutting herself with when it came to the knife and stuff, and just everything about it was just so perfect. It was like an M. Night Shyamalan twist, but a good twist, if you get what I mean. And the last movie we're going to talk about has had sequel after sequel after sequel, has had, you know, reboots multiple reboots, but I'm here to talk about the original 1978's Halloween by John Carpenter. Although there are other Halloween movies I like, which I did like the first two movies of this past Halloween trilogy before the third movie ruined it, and I did like Rob Zombie's first Halloween movie where he actually went more into the origin of Michael Myers as a child before his second movie just went batshit crazy. And yes, there's even some, like I still like Halloween 2, Halloween 4 is okay. After that it starts becoming just like, okay, now this is just something that you're just profiting off of, like you're not even trying anymore. And of course there's Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, but that has nothing to do with Michael Myers. But with this one, it's a low-budget horror film that was just supposed to be cheesy in a sense, but little did they know that with one William Shatner Halloween mask that they would create one of the most iconic horror movie characters ever. And to this day, I mean, we see that William Shatner mask everywhere, and what makes this one so intriguing is throughout this whole movie, you see Michael Myers, all you hear from him is just his constant breathing through his mask, and just the blackness in his eye. Like, you can't even see his pupils, so when you're just looking through the mask, there's just nothing but a soulless person behind it. And some of the kills are interesting too, sort of similar to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Despite all these kills, there's not a ton of blood, but it doesn't rely on that. It just kind of relies on jump scares and other things to kind of, freak the audience member out. And it just helped Jamie Lee Curtis take off, as we just mentioned, her mother Janet Leigh in Psycho, and of course Jamie Lee Curtis followed in her footsteps. Halloween is just a classic of doing the most with little. Like, it was just so low budget, they didn't have much to go off of, so they were like, let's just get a William Shatner mask, let's mess it up a little bit and see where that goes. And well, again, it's one of the most creepiest masks in existence, and it was all created in a matter of just a small budget. Well, there you go. Those were my 10 favorite horror films of all time, some newer, some older, and even a silent film on there, because again, silent films, they may not be everybody's cup of tea because, I gotta read the words and come on the screen, and I gotta, stay focused for like an hour and 10 minutes to like an hour and a half at a time. But again, if you get time to watch Nosferatu, please do, and pay attention to it, because it is a very interesting movie for its time. And yeah, that's where I'll leave it off. You can tell me in the comments below, if you're a horror fan, what are some of your favorite horror films, whether it's cheesy B horror that's just so bad it's good, or some masterpiece. Like, I know people are probably gonna be like, where's The Exorcist? I'm gonna be honest with you, I like The Exorcist, but it's not as scary or as good as people make it out to be. It's just kind of, it's always been like on my list of like, yeah, it's good, but I never fully saw the hype around it, if you get what I mean. Possession movies, I don't really like possession movies that much, but there's good ones out there like the Amityville Horror as well, so I guess I can't really clown them too much, but no pun intended, by the way. But yeah, that's it for me. Stay safe out there, and until then, have a happy Halloween, and I will catch you all in the next one.